Watch out, let me get a shot. Where they at? Where they at? Put on that rooftop. Hey! Give me a fucking 42 in the United States!
We're east of the riverbed. And, we're taking fire from the west. Roger, stand by, we're popping smoke. Gun runs north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Welcome to the Combat Leadership Podcast. Here's our host, Mike Etor.
Ryan Rogers, welcome back for part 2. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Mike. I'm excited to kind of lay the rest of this down. Talking offline. Got kind of jacked up for it here.
Yeah, well, we talked about 45 minutes. We already had spit throwing through my screen and all that, so I figured we better contain some of that vibe for this. But anyway, I'm glad you're back for part 2. For those watching and listening to this episode, Ryan's part 1 is episode 31, the episode that just precedes this. I recommend that you watch or listen to it first before you watch or listen to part 2, because he was dropping some real truth and wisdom bombs and lessons learned and good advice to future warriors out there and all that. So with that, again, Ryan, thanks for coming back. And I want to pick up right where we left off, mental toughness. I don't think anybody disagrees that everybody's got to be mentally tough as a warrior and all that. What that really means, how do you develop it? How do you keep it? There's the debate, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the obvious question, how important do you think it is for warriors to be mentally tough, tenacious, self-reliant before and during combat? Because I think you got to be mentally tough. My answer would be you got to be mentally tough to do the right kind of training to become mentally tough for combat. So I'll shut up. What are your thoughts about it? And how'd you develop it? What worked for you?
Okay. 2 parts. I'd say first off, it wouldn't be in the national strategy from every Secretary of Defense for our citizens and our military to have a max amount of resilience if it wasn't important. They talk about resilience and resiliency building in our citizens, in our people, because we need to have a resilient and tough nation, especially when hard times come and are brought to our nation, let's say. God forbid that happens. And I think they say that because when you see a shooting over in another country or a massive, attack, or you see something like Israel attacking Gaza, the average citizen in America can't stomach that. They can't stomach real war. So it has to be said to them, you need to get resilient. You need to be tough. Now, on the leadership side of small teams, I guess it's different strokes for different folks. My way of developing aggression, well, first off, hopefully some of that's developed in childhood. Young boys need to be wild and adventurous. They need to fight. They need to run. They need to get aggressive sometimes. I mean, that's natural in a young man. And sometimes you just need to let boys be boys. They're wild. They should have a little bit of aggression. They need to have a little bit of danger. They need to have a little bit of know-how and forthcoming aggression to be able to man a family and man the things that regular American men or Western men need to do. So a lot of that should be done in the beginning before they even get to me as a Marine. However, when you, as a small unit leader, developing aggression, for me was fighting. I'd have my guys fight all the time. I'd right face my platoon and march them into the next platoon and cause a fight. Fighting was a daily thing for me in every Victor unit I was in. Absolutely. We'd grapple, we'd fight, we'd box if able, we'd incorporate some sort of hand-to-hand combat every single day in our training plan or in my training plan. It was max effort attitudes and constant competition, because I found early in my life that competition breeds results. And I can make you compete in a myriad of different ways. I can make you run. I can make you do push-ups, pull-ups, anything. I can make you fight each other. I can say, you two now in the middle, ring around them, go. And that builds aggression for sure. And the competition, having competition within it, breeds a result every time. Pain is a good teacher. So if you're constantly getting beat, you're going, as a Marine, you're going to evolve, or you're going to continue to get beat down. And the good thing about Marines in a platoon is you know that your platoon is only as strong as your weakest man. So generally what you see, that shitbag or that boot Marine, he might get his ass kicked a couple of times. But after a couple of times, you're seeing these people pick him up like, hey, dude, come on, we got to get better about this. So it's not just a beat them down, haze them kind of a thing, but it's more of a, hey, you're in the game to fight, and where we're going, you can do everything right and lose. If you're not aggressive, we are going to lose. I need you to be on this wavelength. I need you to have this energy. And saying that to them is a big thing, constantly making sure audibly I'm telling them what I expect of them. And then I'm incorporating adversity that they must get over using aggression. The adversity, somebody's going to punch you in the mouth, or he's going to triangle choke you with his legs until you pass out. Yeah. Do something about it. So I think that's the way that I, at least at the squad level, would handle aggression. If I seen somebody that needed a little bit of aggression, roger that, dude, we're going to fight. And sometimes I didn't see anything. I just made them fight. And maybe that's not the way, but it was my way, and it worked.
Well, good insights. And I want to, our next topic that we're going to talk about is physical conditioning. And you know where I'm going to go with this. I think that there are physical training events, humps, other things that in itself could be made so challenging that it develops mental toughness to complete that event. But before I do that, I want to talk to you. Let's talk to the young kid out there that aspires to be a Marine or Green Beret or whatever. And he's in high school right now. And, I'm an old guy now, going on 70 years old. And I grew up in an era where there were fights all the time at school. If Jimmy came and slapped me in the back of my head, it was on. Yeah. And the teacher would break you up and send you to principal, and the principal would say, you're both detention after school. But you didn't get thrown out. And you definitely, for the last 30 years or so, if a kid picked a fight with another kid, the other kid is not supposed to respond. He's supposed to go tell on the kid. Don't respond. If you do fight, even though the kid spit on you or something, you both get thrown out, And so here's my point. In the mid-90s, recruit training, they realized that almost none of the recruits coming in had ever been in a fist fight in their life. They had not. And they instituted what they called the striking program, where it's had many different evolutions, but they had a rope on the PT field, I think they did it where pugil sticks was. They had a rope, and a kid was on each side with 16-ounce big-ass pillow boxing gloves and a headgear, and they'd and there'd be 10 pairs of recruits, and they'd blow the whistle, and their job was just to beat the fuck out of each other for 30 seconds, but don't cross the rope would keep them separated. And it was just to breed aggression and to show them, for a lot of people, that was the first time they ever took a shot to the head. Oh shit, that hurts, And
oh my God, you can make it.
But they felt the need to develop some kind of aggression, and they didn't want the first time someone ever laid hands on these guys was in a close encounter for real in combat, which definitely happened in both Iraq and Afghanistan. There's a lot of stories of face-to-face with a Taliban, and next thing you know, you're wrestling with the guy, and things like that. And so what I am talking about is, let's talk to these young guys. I am a big, I was a wrestler all the way from 3rd grade through Division I. I believe you wrestled as well, I would encourage anyone that would listen, if you're thinking about going into some kind of a military unit where you really want to be a fighter, get involved in hard shit, so to speak. do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, do wrestling, run those Ironman triathlons, run those Tough Mudders and all that. Do hard stuff physically.
Yep.
And I'm talking to the females as well as the men. I don't know if you know this, Ryan, but I don't know if it's a current statistic, but as of about 4 years ago, the fastest growing middle school, junior high, and high school sport in America was girls wrestling. The number one fastest growing sport, because these girls are looking for a challenge. And I got to tell you, there was no females in my day, and my younger sons, the last one stopped wrestling in high school about 2011, and you'd get the odd girl in there, and she'd have to wrestle guys, and sometimes the light girls would do okay because the men hadn't hit puberty yet. Now there are bona fide girls that have been wrestling 10 or 15 years since they're 4 years old and all that, and I got to tell you, these girls are good.
Oh yeah,
they're really. It's an Olympic sport now. I went to the World Championships in Las Vegas, the World Championships, and I watched the first time I ever saw high-level female wrestling. I was astounded.
Oh, yeah.
These girls were killers, you know what I mean? And so again, I'm going on a rant here. I want to get your thoughts on it. If you're out there and you want to join and you're listening to, I'm definitely an old fart, and to a 14-year-old, you're an old fart, it just, I say, I want to get your thoughts. I say, get out there and do hard things. Play sports, especially individual combat sports. Lay hands on somebody. Learn what it is to have someone lay hands on you. Do hard stuff. I'll turn it over to you, Ryan. Your thoughts?
I wouldn't say much different than that. I think that if you're going to come in, I'd say absolutely do something that breeds discipline and difficulty. Doing that. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, open wrestling, things of this nature. You don't want to have the first time like you were talking about before. And I think the Marine Corps crushed it with, as far as if that's what they were seeing in the data, that they should have bred that aggression and put that into programs. But don't let be the first time you get punched in the mouth be where somebody can take your life. That's silly. That's silly. So I think that, yes, that's going to breed your aggression. Yes, it's going to breed your confidence. And I think just any human being, I don't care what you're about to do. If you can't control your body and keep somebody off of you, if you're a mother, you have children. If the father's not always around, who protects the children? If you're a mother, you need to be an in-shape mother who's head on a swivel and able to care for and protect your children. If you're a man, that goes without saying. Your job is to protect anybody that's less fortunate, smaller, or less dynamic than yourself. And if you don't think that's your job, you're wrong as a man. Your man is to protect your job is to protect your community. So if you're a man, I had my kids in boxing very early. My youngest daughter's about to start jiu-jitsu. Maybe in the next 6 months, we're shopping for a new gym, but that's what I'm doing with my kids. This isn't just something that I say, and I could give a damn less whether they come in the military. If they do, hoorah, I'm all about it. If they don't, they will still know how to protect themselves, period. I'm not raising the same kids that everybody else wants to raise in this country. I'm raising kids that when my daughter got bullied and pushed around in high school, she did something about it. And guess what? She's not bullied anymore. Nobody's talking to her like that anymore. And somewhere along the way that was lost. I don't know where it was lost. But I'm not ascribing to that. If you do something to me and mine are going to have the plan and the know-how to handle that situation, period. And if you're not like that in your family, I think you're doing your children and your wife and your family element probably a pretty big disservice, because you won't always be there as the father. You can't always be there as the father. So you need to breed that into them. They need to know how to take care of themselves and have the confidence therein to say, yeah, I can get hit. That's okay. I can get hit and I know what to do after that. That's my 2 cents on it. I get passionate about it because I don't see a lot of it. I don't see people taking these steps. There's people out there taking them, but not by and large. And we live in a country that's increasingly more dangerous. Yeah,
I agree with that. And so I'm going to make 2 points. I just tell the audience out there, the younger audience, don't believe Ryan and don't believe me. All I'll say is this: at just about every state wrestling championship, the state tournament, there's a Marine Corps booth, recruiting booth, and there's a Navy SEAL booth. And both of those, the Marine Corps actually is a major sponsor of high school amateur wrestling events. Sure. A major sponsor, to where the kids that win the the championships, they pose with the Marines giving them the trophy and all that. Why are they there? Yep. Because they say, all else being equal, we want guys that we know are already tough. Don't even have to be a good wrestler, but you have to be tough just to get through the practices and get your ass kicked in front of 3,000 people and all of that. Sure. So I'm a big fan. And then I have a grandson who just turned 13 and he wants to wrestle. So I have him in my home gym with his dad, who was a wrestler. He's developing physically, but he's not mentally hard yet. He's still a kid, still, just into puberty and all of that. And we talk to him all the time, like, all right, now I'm going to put you on the treadmill. This is a 10-minute run, starting off at this pace. And in the middle, you're going to run 4 minutes at 7.6 on the treadmill. And that's faster, and it's going to improve your conditioning. But this is the conditioning right here, because it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt, Cole. It's going to hurt. And that's where the battle begins, when that voice tells you, this hurts. Step off to the side of the treadmill. I can't tell you what to do. And we're seeing him get mentally tougher. And every time he works out, I put him on the chin-up bar for a bar hang, timed bar hang. And the first few times, he's just a kid, not mentally hard. He'd get up there 11 seconds, drop off. And then I got up. I said, watch, me and your dad are going to compete. I'm going to kick your dad's ass. I didn't know if I could, it'd been a long time, but I got up and I'm like squeezing my ass off. And I got to I want to say a minute and 28, a minute 30 seconds, And for some perspective, when they do this, when physical therapists do this, the average man can't last 30 seconds. Oh, yeah. And so I did a minute and 32, a minute and 28, I think. And my son's watching, and I know he's thinking, shit, Damn it. So he got up, and he's 36 years old, strong as an ox. So he did a minute 50, Yeah. And I was talking shit to him too. I'm like, don't let me beat you, son, in front of your own son, and all that. But my point is this: every time that kid gets up, I'm like, come on now, 14 seconds ain't shit, Cole. Let's go. Yeah. And my son will hold his iPhone right in front of him while he's hanging. I'm like, come on, Cole, there's 14. Come on. Keep going. He'll go and go. I think we got him up to 38 seconds now. Nice. And when he does that, I'm like, Cole, see what I mean? See? Yep. See what I mean? Now, did your hands and forearms start screaming at you? He goes, yeah. I said, but you could still hang on. You hang on until your hands just literally open up on their own, That's right. So we're developing mental toughness in him. But to your point, not every kid is getting that, Yeah. And I don't think I have heard, you were there. I've not heard of any real systemic problem where young guys in Iraq and Afghanistan, young Marines, weren't mentally tough enough. I have heard that there were always isolated cases. Isolated, maybe. Of a guy here and there that he just wasn't mentally tough and felt any always going to sick bay and my back hurts and all of that. From what I understand, if the kid persisted with that, they would carve him out and say, guess what? You're going to Graves registration. That's what you're going to do on this deployment. You're not going to be with us anymore. You know what I mean? Because you're a liability. You can't. But I have to believe that a lot of these kids got there. They were a year or so out of high school, never been in combat before. But over the weeks and months that followed, it's hot as shit. Everybody's losing weight. They're dehydrated. They left those combat deployments a hell of a lot tougher mentally and physically than when they first set foot on the soil of Iraq and Afghanistan. Any thoughts on it? You were there. I don't know physically always, because, it just depends on your
resources in your deployment. Like on our deployment, I lost 30 something pounds. Yeah. I was weak coming back because bad food, miles and miles and miles and miles on the foot fighting. And so, but mentally, you come back with the difference there. And I think sometimes that's what casts veterans, especially veterans of kinetic fights, a little bit different than society when you come home. One, you're aware to a different side of the world than what anybody else is aware of. And two, you got to see and be in a situation where, like, if you don't adapt to this and get hard, you die. If you don't adapt and get hard, there is no quitting when your helicopter is the only thing taking you out of that place. You don't quit. There's no quitting. And your helicopter company and you get dropped into the middle of the city, there's no quit. It's around you. It's amongst you. And when you have that style of deployment, you don't have an option but to get mentally tough. And even your weak guys must get mentally tough. And so, I think that the earlier we start carving out and dealing with adversity in our own lives, I think the better. And I think that individual sports definitely do that. I think team sports also are imperative for resilience coming up and having that as a team unit, because you're not going to be alone. Delta Force may send guys on one-op missions. I don't know. Some of them have been lies. Some of them maybe not recently. But our guys don't. We don't have Marines go on alone missions. You're going to come in the Marine Corps. You're going to come in the regular Army and the infantry. Right. You're going to have to be disciplined, and you're going to have to be tough and resilient amongst a team. So that might be even harder, because now you got 13 personalities that you got to vibe with, 12 personalities that you got to vibe with, right? And so there's going to be intramural squabbles and there's going to be people in that squad that don't like you. Period. Absolutely. They don't like you. And you have to be resilient enough and disciplined to say, I got to compartmentalize that right there, because this is my job in this team. And regardless of what he says, I have to do these jobs. And so I think that's very important as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to amend what I said when I said they left, mentally and physically tougher. I was well aware that guys would get kind of deconditioned. They would lose all the weight and all of that. And so I probably screwed up by saying that. What I was saying is, when you're out there and you weren't overweight to begin with, you didn't have a lot of body fat, and you've already lost 23 pounds. And I've heard that, Mike, it was sometimes in the high 120s during the day, and it was 110 at night. We got no respite from the heat. We were just always sweating, often didn't have enough water. The food was often shitty. We were on the move, sleeping on the ground and all of that. And I think even young guys, their bodies would start hurting. And so that in itself developed mental toughness because of the peer pressure, like, everybody's hurting. I'm not going to be the guy to say I need to go to sick bay or I can't keep up with my squad. I'm not doing that. So that physical pain and hardship, I think, has a lot to do with developing mental toughness. And that is my thesis for these young kids going out and getting involved in hard shit. Is do something that's challenging you physically and brings you to your self-perceived limits
mentally,
and you'll get through them. And once you get through, once my grandson cracked the 18 seconds, and once he cracked 20 seconds, the old guy's got something here. I can squeeze.
Yes.
And I told him, I said, you've only been doing this a couple months. You really didn't get that much stronger of a grip or your form.
It's not about the strength.
You got stronger up here.
Yes,
the
sir.
Same thing with the run and all of that. So let's go to the next topic, because it's very much related to mental toughness, and that is often a controversial topic, Ryan, of physical conditioning. And we're talking about physical conditioning, both physical training, PT, what we call PT, and then other things that are definitely physical conditioning, like road marches, humps with roads with heavy loads on, and and things like that. So based on your experience, let's start with the end state. How important is it for someone to be physically fit in context with the ability to endure that 6-month deployment on his feet in Iraq or the mountains of Afghanistan, not running a triathlon, but you arrived here and you were physically ready to start this deployment. You weren't the heat casualty, or the guy that was missing PT and all that. So you would know better than me. How important is it? And then what worked for you individually and as a unit prior to going? And once you got there, did you see anything and said, we should have done more of this and less of that? I'll turn it over to you, my friend.
Yeah, I'll talk specifically about forced marches because my entire career I thought that they were stupid, and I felt like commands did not really care that people were getting hurt. We're going to walk this long 20-mile McCree, and why? I just felt like people were getting hurt constantly and going in the back of safety Vics, and well, then I got to Marjah and we did like a 17-click clear under fire, some of it, and on the feet the whole way. And when we got done, do you know what my guys said? They said it wasn't as bad as that forced march at Lejeune. It gave them something worse to compare their life to compare their feet to, their back to, their head to. And as soon as my Marine said that, I went, yep, you're right. You're right. Yeah. I'm glad we did 20 miles. It's actually 22-mile McCree we did with 3.6 right before we left. They took a wrong tank trail and it made it 2 more miles. And all of our feet were completely skinned. The whole bottoms of every single dude in the unit came off. And not only that, Colonel Christmas got us down to the 6 Reg softball fields, and we're 22 miles in. People their bodies aren't working correctly. We were toting machine guns and everything's, organic to the company. And he said, everybody send me every company, get your best men up here. We're doing a tug of war. And nobody wanted to do it. Everybody was hurt. And his point was, you just got to the fight and now you have to fight. And that spoke volumes to me. As soon as my Marine is over on this side and says something to the order of, it's not as bad as home, I went, yep, that's exactly why we do them. This was all about between the ears, had nothing to do with splints and shin splints and hairline fractures. It didn't matter. It mattered right here to say, it doesn't matter. You have something worse now. We're not doing that. You have something worse now. And so those kind of events in hindsight made way more sense than when we were actually doing them. Running is huge. Having the proper circulatory system with your blood and your cardiovascular system and being able to breathe. Yeah, it's one thing to be able to say, I'm in great shape and I'm a 300 PFTer. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is, can you run that 50 meters and dope in on that dude and get to your natural respiratory pause and blow his face backwards? Because if you can't, then that's not good shape for me. If I get hit, can you come and put my 200-pound body, because I'm 200 plus pounds with a full combat load, on your back and run it 100 meters to that helicopter? Can you do that? You can. I don't care what you look like or what your PFT score is then. You can do that? Cool. Can you not do that? Then I don't want you in my squad. I have to be able to trust you to be able to do that one thing. If you can't, I don't want you around me. You're a liability to me. That's what I like about what, the recent events with the Secretary of War coming out and reinstituting, early 90s elite male standards. Why? Because that's what we need in combat arms so people don't die. That's what we need. Yes. I want the most elite standards for my squad. Yeah. Not let's lower them so more different females and males can come in. The females that need to be in, they're there. They're bad girls, and they can make the male standard. They exist, many of them. Let's not take that away from them. You know what I mean? That's my contention with it. So, yeah, it's a huge thing. Physical conditioning, huge thing. Being able to move and take those shots, huge thing. Huge thing. Yeah. I seen Marines who couldn't hit inside or outside of 300. On the regular, that was the rule. They couldn't hit outside of 300. Was a lot of that due to them being smoked? Probably. Was a lot of that due to lack of training? Probably was. And I'm like a guy that wants to be the solution, right? And so now I train gunfighting. I smoke these kids in a simulator, yes, but I smoke them. I reimagine what combat's going to do to you. I talk about shunting. I talk about being in shape because your body's going to do something with your blood and your oxygen that you can't control. And if you're out of shape, it's harder on you. You can't hit anything. Yeah. Right. And so that's something I'm passionate about because it's what I do now. I teach these guys about that specific thing, about being in shape, about if you're out of shape, I'm going to put you through. And now you get to see what out of shape gun marksmanship looks like. When your heartbeat is moving your eyeballs, that's when you're shooting the enemy. When you can feel the heartbeat in your eyeballs, that's when you're doped in and you have to get to that pause. Press not pull. It's not going to be in a house every time. It's not at 7 meters. Your average engagement, Marines, is at 300 plus out of a murder hole that you can't see. There's not dog targets sitting there stationary for you that you can't hit. These guys are running, right? And so I know this is, I'm not trying to lecture, but I see this every day. I train the 2nd Marine Division over here. And it's like, being in shape, big part of it. Being in shape just so you can control your weapon system is a big part of it, So
Well,
sleep deprivation as well. I know on your thing, you said endurance, sleep deprivation, heat and cold. I dealt with all of that in Marjah.
Oh yeah.
I dealt with guys that got hypothermia and I had to actually medevac for hypothermia. There's times I had to start warming fires, which was never on my radar as a leader. Hypothermia, starting a fire during combat so my guys can warm up. That was new to me, having guys chemical cocktails dump and that adrenaline, they fight, and then their hands don't work anymore because they have so much adrenaline coursing through them and they pass out because they need to sleep. That's weird. Not on my radar. So,
well, let me jump in there because that you bring up a good point for the current and future gladiators out there. And in this case, the current ones especially, you won't find too much written about I don't think you'll find too much written about what you just said, the personal experience of seeing guys so amped up that their hands aren't working anymore. And that's the essence of this podcast for the young warriors out there watching this, is to cast a wide net and talk to people about this. These questions that I'm asking of Ryan and other guests should cause you to ask these questions of other people. Like, look, I watched this podcast and he was asking about mental toughness and physical conditioning and the intertwining of the two. What worked for you? Talk to Vietnam guys, talk to Iraq guys and all that, because, the PFC of early Iraq and Afghanistan was now in his mid to late 40s, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so he's got a better perspective on what he did and all of that. So I just wanted to state that. And I also want to I know what your answer is going to be, but we need to bring it up for these folks out there. Again, especially the current soldiers and Marines out there, combat arms guys, who, these conditioning hikes, force marches, whatever you want, they're a pain in the ass, literally, and they take a long time. 8 milers, 12 milers, 15 milers. They take a long time, and it's easy for people to say, what value does it have? So they get lulled into what I call garrison silk shorts wearing PT. And they fool themselves into thinking, our company average run now is 2050 or something. We're in shape. Well, you're in shape for a PT, for a PFT, under timed conditions, under good weather. Everybody slept last night, except the guys that were
tennis shoes.
4 a.m., and I did that as well, when I was a young guy. But you're in shape for that event under those conditions and those parameters. don't ever believe that you're in shape for that long 17 movement to contact, 17 click movement to contact. And by the way, this is 3 or 4 weeks into it. You're already dehydrated. You're already tired. You're not getting 8 hours of sleep a night. The food ain't shit. That's the only conditioning that matters. And you do what you're required to do of your MOS in that unit as a supporting player under the real conditions of combat, which often aren't running 3 miles.
Nope.
But man, it's the day after day grind. Any last thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I just think you're right. I think there's different kinds of shape. I was on the all Marine boxing team for just short of a year, and I ran my worst PFT time. And I was chiseled, very little body fat, but the way we trained was quick twitch muscle systems because of fighting, right? We're going to fight. That is not what an endurance 3-mile run does. And most of my stuff in combat was quick twitch, quick burst, quick fights, and recover. Quick burst, quick fights, and recover. Now, here's the difference about combat. You might have patrolled 4 clicks to get to that quick burst fight. So there's a little bit of that endurance and a little bit of that quick twitch that kind of coincides with that. Yeah. So there is multiple avenues you have to think. And I think that's why we moved to a CFT years ago, maybe 06, 07 timeframe, was because we needed something to test that, do that 880, do that press, do that movement under fire. I think it's great. And what you find is that the fleet guys, they crush that. The non-03 fleet people, they have a lot of them have trouble with that. So it's testing different portions, endurance, quick twitch, quick movement under fire. And I like that. I think that the CFT is a good representation of more of what combat feels like. And then the PFT is more just standard physique. Can you do some pull-ups? Can you do some presses? Can you do a run?
Yeah.
And
I just think, in its defense, I think the PFT, pull-ups, crunches, 3-mile run, is a very time-efficient way to gauge overall fitness of a unit. I mean, a PFT, you can run a whole unit PFT in less than an hour. You know what I mean? It's fast. But my point, and you're agreeing with it, is please, fellas out there, don't ever allow yourself to think that kind of physical effort and results and performance correlates one for one for being able to do it under a load day after day under shitty conditions, I
mean, it's a good start.
Yeah, it is a good baseline. I'm not saying not to do it.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I will throw this, I'm a bit of a student of this, and World War II, it wasn't until the early 60s, I believe, that the Marine Corps instituted kind of a combat fitness. They did step-ups on a wall, how many you could do in a minute, and buddy carries, and I think there was a rope climb and all of that. Prior to that, physical training was calisthenics and road marches. And those guys were tough bastards and all that. And I remember talking to older guys when the PFT got instituted in the mid to late 60s, and they said, the guys that were still in from World War II and Korea, they were like, what the hell is a 3-mile run? I'm a 3-war guy. I've never run more than 50 yards under fire, and you couldn't convince them they had to do it because they operate. And so my point is, the stuff that we're saying really counts. That's all those guys did to prepare for war.
Sure. Sure.
I don't have it anymore. I actually got a hold of the physical standards for the Marine Raiders in World War II. And it was all humping. That's what they used.
Yeah, it's
they
here.
Absolutely. And you know what they used, Ryan? They used this thing that the term now is called the sickener. Special ops units do this, and you've had this happen. Edson's Raiders, and they would, who wants to be a Raider? Okay, and they put them in. They just hump the shit out of them day after day. increasing loads, increasing distances, and under less time and all of that.
Sure.
And when they got them a little bit in shape, here's what they did. They got used to stopping at the barracks.
Go past it.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
watch
they
their mind melt.
And so this is.
We still do it. We still do it to privates when I was in.
And they always stopped at the barracks. And then the Marines saw the barracks. Oh, thank God, we're almost done.
Yep.
And they'd keep going, keep walking by it. Guys start dropping. And
that's all between the ears.
Edson would only take the unit like another mile.
Yep.
And then turn around. But by the time he turned around, there's a few dozen guys that quit.
Strung out. Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the mental toughness to say, okay, we're not stopping. I'm staying in. But the guys that did, they stayed. Imagine the feeling on those guys like, I only had to hang in there for another 15, 20 minutes.
Yep.
And now I'm out. And that's the selection process that they used, mental toughness and all that. Well, let's talk about the next topic that really, I say, if you do this right, you got to be in a certain amount of physical conditioning. This develops physical conditioning, and the combination of good training, physical conditioning will also help develop that kind of mental toughness and all that. So let's talk about training. I know you put your unit through training, and your unit also received good training, prior to deployments and all that.
Sure.
Were there any training issues, skill issues that caught you by surprise when you got in a combat zone? Like, well, we did a little bit of this, but not enough, or we didn't do any of this at all. And this is a critical skill here, and nobody ever mentioned it to us here, So
I don't know if
on that?
Yeah, I don't think it's something that nobody mentioned. I think combat marksmanship in the Marine Corps is not good. At least when I was in, 300 and out was hard for the average Marine to put rounds on target, especially if the target was moving. So I would say more training that way, more UKD, more unknown distance training, making the Marines understand distances and then put effects on target, even if you miss. I talk about in my book how the very first guy I shot in Marjah, he was creeping up a tree line. I thought he was 400. I pulled up, put my 400 hold on him, at least close to on him, and it dove into at his feet. Boom, seen the sand hit. So instantly I self-correct, come up, put it on the next 100 line up, wow, hit him. Then he folds, all right? But we need guys to be able to do that in one round. I couldn't even do it in one round. I need you to do that in one round, and I couldn't get guys to do that. So I think there was a training. Like, here's the thing. When I was in 3-6, I came a month before we pushed. I was still learning my guys' names. I combat replaced squad leaders who decided not to go because it went from a MEU to a kinetic, invasion. And so I took squad over, but those guys were trained for a MEU. I mean, they had a year-long training package. They were good. The problem is the Marine Corps' way of long-distance shooting is not good. Or wasn't good. We've now adapted. It went up to the, close quarters lethality, combat lethality task force up there. It was formerly Gunnar LaRose that was helping run some of that, and then others, and they did a phenomenal job. They brought SF operators in to teach them the different ways that they're making shooters and such. And we've come a long way just since I've gotten out with different marksmanship packages that we're running now, and then bringing simulation, Conflict Kinetics, who I work for, bringing simulation and other simulators that are out there that are really good one-for-one, that we can take somebody and put them in an environment and actually teach them. I'm not hazing you. I'm laying down right beside you. I'm watching your breath. I'm watching the tip of your index finger press, not pull that thing. I'm showing you how to self-diagnose when your rounds do something on the target, and I'm nobody. I'm not yelling at you. I'm not a sergeant. I'm not nobody. And then you just take that from me, and I think that style is working. But absolutely, that was a seam. and Marines have been hitting targets for a long time. Don't get me wrong. But when kids come to me from boot camp, they come to me with this Olympic style hold and such. That's not what I need. I need your body flush like you're getting in a fight and you're using your body armor. I need your natural point of aim to be straight at that target, not 45 degrees oblique out here because your right foot is canted. When your right foot cants, it opens your hips. When your hips open, your shoulders open. And now when I'm trying to run a hammered pair on somebody, the second shot always misses out to the right because my natural point of aim is not straight. And when it's not straight, I'm not riding that recoil proper, right? So we're just really getting into the weeds with these guys, and it seems to be working. So hopefully that, is better. More hikes, like you said. I think that I was always a proponent and didn't like them, talked crap about them until I seen the use of them. And it does both. It makes your body hard and it makes your brain hard. We need that. You gotta have that. I think that's the biggest thing. Marines are good, and tactical level Marines are always going to accomplish the mission regardless of what training they have. In my opinion, they've always done it. They get down at the tactical level and they're going to push, and they're going to keep pushing until you tell them to go a different direction. I want to make them as lethal as they can be. That way we don't have unnecessary mistakes and deaths. That's my biggest thing. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. And, you mentioned Secretary of War Hegseth's recent speech to all the generals and admirals. And we talked about this before, and if you net out the points he was making, I don't see how any warrior of any grade, rank, would argue with what he's saying. Is our job is to win wars. Our job, in its essence, is to break things and kill people when the politicians say we need you to go there to do A, B, and C. Yep. Inflict the, in national interests and all of that. And I want to hear your thoughts. We've already said so much of it, but it's not popular, even among a lot of active duty Marines and soldiers nowadays. Like, what's his obsession with physical fitness and personal appearance? And what's it matter? And everybody, the Marine Corps uses that word lethal for about 15, 20 years now. And I find that nobody argues with the fact that you got to be lethal, but everything made us more lethal. It's good to have these social programs because it makes us more lethal. It didn't do jack shit to make us lethal. No. Lethal is what he's saying. The enemy gets a vote, and it doesn't care who you are. And so my point is this, I'm going to let you talk on this. I think he is a young, fit guy. And while he doesn't have general officer experience or even civilian experience running a large organization, he was in the ranks fairly recently. And he saw what was going on as far as diversion of effort from what really mattered. And he does walk around the Pentagon and goes to all these bases, and he is seeing really an obesity epidemic. And my beloved Marine Corps is not immune to that. There's a lot of, on social media, a support unit, I think it was Marine Logistics Group 1, their unit Facebook page, Ryan, proudly put out a video, like morning PT. And they were proud of it. They put it out there. That video panned the unit. And I got to tell you, there were Marines and sailors in that unit, and they had cami bottoms on and a T-shirt. There were Marines, male and female, that were at least 30 to 40 pounds overweight. I'm talking about stomachs hanging over. And while we all know that rare guy that looks like that and can max a PFT and he can go for days in combat, most of the people that look like that, their physical conditioning mirrors what they look like.
I'd say so.
It is a good indicator. And I'd like you just to say some final comments on Hegseth was right. We have to get back to the basics, and leaders must show everybody what right looks like.
Yeah.
Does he expect a general officer to look as good and be as physically fit as he was when he was a lieutenant? No. But I'll say this, in that room, I dare say that if he made all of the Marine Corps generals stand up, the overwhelming majority of them looked good in uniform.
Agreed.
And that meant they had the discipline, because I'm here to tell you, Ryan, it gets harder when you get older. Your metabolism slows down. It gets harder. Then you work out, you get hurt, you can't work out as much anymore. Yep. And what that shows me is these guys are all in their 50s, some of them are in their 60s, and they have the self-discipline to look good in uniform because of the message that it sends.
That's right.
Their troops. Because ultimately, these guys are signing off on packages, throwing guys out for being fat.
Yep.
Well, it's a hypocrisy when the lieutenant colonel or colonel who's signing that package himself is fat, you know? Yep. Anyway, I could go on this, but your last thoughts on the importance of really what it is just basic military stuff. If you sign up for the military, especially in the Army and the Marine Corps Combat Arms, you're signing up for there will be physical requirements. I do have to look the part. It's the baseline requirement, but most of all, I have to have this operating system, my body, physically fit enough and healthy enough to be MOS proficient under extreme conditions, which they always are in prolonged wars. It's either prolonged cold or prolonged heat or both in the case of Korea. You know, your thoughts on this?
We've hit a lot of it already. I think that this is long overdue. I don't know where the project to start allowing anybody into the Marine Corps or the military. I don't know when that project started. I think it was before my time that it actually got started, and some of this equality actually got started probably more during your time, there towards the end of your time. But for me, I don't care who's in. You can be a woman, you can be a man, but you got a standard. There's a standard, and you have to complete it. You have to match that standard. And that standard is there so people don't get hurt. That's what that standard's for. And there's plenty of females that can meet that male standard. You know, there's no reason to lower it so all females or all males can meet that standard. And it's not a standard anymore. It's just like a guideline maybe or a suggestion. It's not a standard. The standard is a standard for a reason. Lethality equals, for me, lethality is rounds on targets and time. That's what lethality is to me. Rounds on target and how fast can you do it, right? That's what I teach. And being overweight and obese, that's going to take you longer, period. You're not more lethal. You're making me less lethal as a force. And that's if you can shoot good. That's if you can move good. That's if you don't run out of breath while we're moving to the objective and fall out, right? If you're little, whether you're a male or a female, if you're a little physique and you can't throw a 200-pound body on top of your back, you're a liability. You're a liability to the unit in which you run with. Do we need females? Yes. I want the females that can complete the standard, though. And that's what Pete Hegseth is saying. Otherwise, you're a liability. And the males, we lowered the standard so females can come in. But guess what? A lot of males came in on the back of that would not have otherwise made it. Yeah. I was at ITB at Alpha Company as an instructor, infantry training battalion, when the first females started coming through, and they dropped the standard. Anybody that says they didn't is a liar. Yeah. They dropped it for everybody so that they could complete it, though. Right. So I don't like that. This is not a dig at women. I love women. Women are great. Right. Women in the military are a necessity for sure. And I had FET Marines and Lioness units with me in Helmand Province that did great things. No doubt about it. Not taking it away from them. But when you start dropping standards that were standards for some time because of what? Some political experiment.
Yeah.
We're talking about life and death and war. One generation away from not being this country anymore, the same country as we start with. And people say that, and it's just this talking point. Yeah. No, it's real. The second that the other country superpowers, the other superpower decides to stop doing what we're doing, and we decide to have, females in every branch and dresses in every branch, and doesn't matter who's wearing them, and our standards are completely shot. Yeah, bet your ass. They're watching that. They're watching all of it. They're watching these videos that suggest fat Marines. They're watching these videos that suggest our army's completely out of pocket and that our generals have lost their mind. They know this. It's not a reason why Vladimir Putin decided under one administration to invade and under another not invade. I mean, there's strength. We project power or we project weakness. And until people people need to understand that the military shouldn't be this experimentation ground where we try to test wokeism. That's a problem. This is who protects us. And next to them, then it's first responders. And we don't need that. These are the people that keep this nation safe. There's a place for everybody, in my opinion. There's a place for everybody. It's not always combat arms. It's not always combat arms.
Yeah, I agree. And one final thought for me. This is the Combat Leadership Podcast. We talk a lot broadly about warriors in general. I'll let you opine on this, Ryan, but for those leaders out there and those future leaders, there is always going to be what I call the social bullshit coming from above. Mm-hmm. Even in my day, you had some of that. Your job as a leader is to shield your troops from as much as that as possible. And despite what people above are telling you, you are going to deploy to combat, and those people aren't coming with you. And combat today at the pointy end of the spear is every bit as savage and deadly as it was when the Romans were fighting at arm's length distance with spears and swords. That won't change.
That doesn't change.
So my point is, it's a fundamental of leadership. A leadership is responsible for everything that happens or does not happen within his or her unit. And so combat leaders, what you do prior to deployment, and today you don't know when that deployment's going to be. I was on a deployment. We were headed to Lebanon, and all of a sudden we're going to Grenada. We didn't know we were going to Grenada. Mm-hmm. And you talk about heat and humidity. Whoa! But we were in shape. We were preparing to go to Lebanon, and their climate pretty much was the same as Virginia. We were going in the fall. It was going to be cold and all of that. All of a sudden, we're in the tropics, and all of that. So that's the thing. You knew when you were making a deployment for the most part. Mm-hmm. These people out there today, they don't know. And that's what I'm begging them is to realize you just never know. At one point with Iraq and Afghanistan, there were Marines that never even heard of Iraq and Afghanistan. And 12 to 18 months later, thousands of Marines and soldiers are already deploying to combat there. So you just never know.
Fact.
And that's what I'm saying is if you're the leader, it's on you to get your folks ready to go tomorrow, in spite of all the stresses and pressures that are going to come from above. If your commander is not really a trainer and not as focused on it, that's no excuse for you not to be. I'm not telling you to get in trouble. I'm telling you, even on a squad, fire team, platoon, company level, do your level best to produce capable, physically, mentally, and MOS proficient warriors. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. No, I think that's right. What I tell Marines when I speak to them over on the base now, I tell them you have to be ready for the opportunity of a lifetime within the lifetime of that opportunity. I heard that from Eric Thomas. He's a motivational speaker and one of the biggest ones out there right now, but he's right. If you lay up and you're not training because there's just, no deployment on the cycle, that's when Murphy's going to fuck you. He's going to say, here's one for you. You're going to wish you were training now. Don't be that guy. Be the guy that is so ready that when it comes up, you go, oh, boys, here we go, baby. We're ready. All of y'all are ready. We're about to do work. That's who you need to be. And you have to be that within the lifetime of the opportunity, because that opportunity is not there very long, right? That opportunity is going to come by like this. And if you get the opportunity here, you have to be ready here now. You can't be ready over here. Over here might get somebody killed. You might be there for 6 months over here before you get ready. And I watched that. My relief came in with 2-9 into Marjah. They should have been ready here. It took them until about right here to get ready. And precious life and national treasure is the cost of that. And it's the cost of that. I call Marines and sailor, anybody that's deploying for this country, national treasure. That's what they are. People talk like they're just pawns. They're just guys. They're military, just guys, right? They're veterans. No, they're not. They're the most precious resource that this country has, period. And if you don't believe that, you're part of the problem.
I love that word, precious. In fact,
they're our children.
For 30 years now, that's exactly right. It's in my book, Trust-Based Leadership. I was out as a captain. I'm in the field. I got my company out there. We're doing stuff. And it finally struck me. Now I had 2 little children. It finally struck me. I'm out there. There's a couple hundred guys out there. Like these are somebody's children.
Yeah.
I mean, these parents don't know me, but they have such faith in the Marine Corps that they believe that I am competent and I am doing everything to equip their child to the best extent possible to survive combat.
Oh, yeah.
And it just struck me, and the weight of that responsibility, like, woo, because now I have children. And now I thought about, what
it's different now. It's different.
It's different, And then I had a colonel one time at Parris Island. I was out at the range. I had the PMIs and coaches, range company. And there was a full bird colonel named Ron Schmidt who was in charge of weapons training battalion. He was great, artillery guy, Vietnam guy, great leader. And I remember standing there on the firing line, and there was a series marching by, recruits. And at this point, back then in boot camp, I think they had been in boot camp like a month before they moved to the range. And so they're still looking kind of ragtag and all, covers or side, just nasty looking, and they're not sure of themselves. They barely can march well. And I remember him looking, and he goes, "Mike, look at him." And I'm like, "Sir, yeah." And he goes, "No, Mike, just look at him. Aren't they precious?" And he said that. And here's a big, strong guy, aren't they precious? And I realized, he just said what you said, Ryan. This is the youth of America.
Yeah.
They're here. They believe everything that we tell them to do. They have the trust of a child to his mother. They have that trust in their sergeants and NCOs and drill instructors. And again, from that point forward, whenever I talk to Marines, write letters, text, whatever, take care of our precious Marines. I always put that. And I include our because, hey, I've been out of the Marine Corps. I've been retired going on 28 years, but it's still my Marine Corps. It'll never be. And those are our precious Marines. And I still care and love about them. And I trust that the combat leaders who, are much younger than me out there, the future combat leaders, that they have that same love and appreciation of the precious Marines that are entrusted to their care. I get emotional about it because it sounds kind of corny, but if you don't, I say as a leader, even in peacetime, if you don't have a love for your people, that almost rivals the love you have for your child, you ain't doing it right. Because that may enables you to start looking at them just as numbers, asses and seats, bodies, whatever the case may be.
That's right.
And that doesn't bring out the best of you as a leader.
Nope.
You know,
I agree with you.
You have to love them enough to be hard on them, just like a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And so enough philosophizing on that. Last big topic really is casualties, and I know you've seen them. So, and I find this is often, at least in my day, a topic I was underprepared for. As you know, it's not like in a movie, somebody gets hit by shrapnel or a bullet. It's not sanitary. It's not clean. It's kind of ugly. And the first time you see someone really torn up, it's kind of shocking to you, and it'll stop you dead in your tracks. Like, what the hell am I looking at? All these colors coming out of somebody's midsection. I want to hear your thoughts, the effects of casualties that future warriors can understand. What are the effects of friendly casualties? Somebody in your unit gets killed or maimed or wounded, you know? What are the effects of casualties when a leader gets hit? Popular, you know, good squad leader, good lieutenant, or you hear, hey, first sergeant over in Alpha Company, you know, we're Bravo Company, but, you know, well-known, highly regarded first sergeant, he's killed, KIA, you know what I mean? The effects of that. And then the not so high-ranking kids, but he's just a popular Lance Corporal. Everybody in the company knows him. And he took one to the chest, and he's no longer with us. What are the effects of these casualties that you saw, and how would you prepare future warriors what to expect, how to deal with them, and how to lead through them?
Yeah, that's tough, Mike. I didn't do well. I don't do well talking about it, and I didn't do well dealing with it. I don't think. I wish that I could have done better in dealing with it myself. But effects on the troops is difficult, especially, like, I can only speak from a Marine squad. That's what I know, and platoon. And for that, I mean, the troops are his best friends. That's what the troops are. So when your best friend dies, how do you deal with that? You deal with it very poorly. Some guys want to kill everything. Some guys want to go to that village and murder everybody. Some people want to do that. Some people don't want to go back out. Some people get scared. Some people get humbled, like, oh shit, we're not invincible, because I thought we were invincible. And that's good. You want a Marine unit to think they're invincible. And then you get humbled, and then you have to kind of feel through that. For me, I give you a short story. Lance Corporal Matthias Hansen was the first person that we lost in Helmand during the Marjah invasion, as far as my platoon goes. There were some guys before that, but Hansen was the first of our platoon to go. And I was on the field that day. And this is going to touch on leaders and troops as well. And I'll get to that, but I want to get through the story first so that I can connect it all. We went on a mission to a village to kill people because they opened fire on our engineers the day prior. One of them got lit up by the engineer turret gunner. My squad went up there to do the, battle damage assessment and kind of dead check this guy and bats and highs, whatever we got to do, ask some questions. And when asking questions, I was told by some locals up there that the guy came from down the hill. Down the hill was a big interconnected, village, 80 compounds, maybe less. Black flags flying everywhere. And they said, if you go down there, you won't come out of there. And I said, okay, roger that, bet. So we go back and we build a let's go down there and get them mission, and we go get them. And in the midst of that, we took casualty. Matthias was hit. They got him into compound. Matthias was hit directly after I had told his squad leader to move and that I had him covered. I had to engage a machine gun bunker at the bottom of the hill, a makeshift machine gun bunker. We put that down, and then they had guys really deep, probably 300, 400, 500 out on top of a roof, firing down into his squad. And my DM rolled them, bop, bop, took them out. Battlefield fell quiet. As soon as I said, hey, you're good to move, you're good to move, he came back and said, are you sure? I said, I'm sure you're good. As soon as his guy moves, he gets hit in the hip, ricochets all through him. They get him into the compound. They get him back. They lose him. They get him back. They lose him. All this is going over the radio. So you imagine on leaders in the COC were throwing things. Leaders in the COC were wondering, do I launch the bird or do I don't launch the bird? Get these guys help, you know? I heard those stories personally. And for us, when you're on the field, it's different. I'm on the field and I know somebody's down in that. I don't know who's down. They call them, you know, we call them guardian angels once they go up, or we call them something else once they're okay. And once they're still in the fight, or they're going to be okay. But we don't always know who. And when I'm trying to look at my LT on that field that day and ask him who was hit, he wouldn't tell me. He just told me it wasn't the sergeant leading that platoon. So I knew, or leading that squad. So I knew the squad leader was okay, but I still didn't know who it was. And we're still in a gunfight. Now I'm closing. And I see a helicopter go over and land. And I'm thinking in my head, the golden hour, right? If he gets him to the next echelon of care, if he gets on that bird alive, he's home. We got him.
Yeah.
And we go through and we fight the day, and it's a hard fight, and we continue to fight the day. And there's some close stuff that happens. There's some far stuff that happens. We win the day. We break contact. We move back to our place. And there's a couple things I've seen. I've seen Lance corporals head to head, gear on, weapon hanging, just holding each other. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's grown men shit right there. And people don't tell you about it. But it's that brotherhood that you hear about. That's it right there. That's the brotherhood you hear about. And I never experienced it. I've been in 10 years at that point almost. Never experienced it. Never been it. And then I seen it. And then you as a leader, you realize that that's what it's about. This right here, the politics, the flag, the bullshit, it's not about that. When they said it's about the guy to your left and right, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. Then Lance corporals holding each other. And then I get down from that and I'm like, I'm moving over to the other side of the road to talk to my LT. I talk to him, I'm trying to find him. I'm like, what the hell? I see him kind of disappear with my platoon sergeant, like out of the wire. They're like out of our compound, kind of walking alone. I'm thinking, that's strange. And as I'm turning back to walk back to my squad berthing area, the other squad leader says, hey man, you know, we lost Matthias. I just wanted you to know that. And you're going to have to tell his guys, but you got to get your shit together. And I was mad, you know. I said, don't you fucking tell me that. Don't you tell me that. My guys are his best friends. Don't tell me that. And that's what I had to deal with. And that's what leaders have to deal with. And then you have to, at 21, 22 years old, figure out the best way to deliver that message to those Lance corporals hanging on to each other who are worried about him, who for the last 3 years lived in the room with him, was his best friend, did everything with him, know his family, go home on Christmas. That's who you have to tell that to. And that's not easy. You know, and the unfortunate side of war is that you bury your friends. You bury your brothers. Sometimes you bury your brothers, and that's it. And that's the best way to say it. And that's how I said it to them. And I handled it poorly. I went into the berthing. I kicked them all out. They thought I was pissed at them, but I couldn't control what I wanted to do. I was having trouble controlling my rage and my hate at the time and my sadness and my sorrow, because whether somebody tells you or not, when you're on that battlefield and you're making decisions with other people's lives and then they end because of it, there's some ownership there. Whether people tell you you own that or not, you own that in your soul. You will own that in your soul. And then you have to figure that out. And so I was angry. And then finally I bring the guys back in and I have to tell them, hey, Hansen didn't make it. And then try to work with them through that as their therapist and say, hey, and then after that, you have a platoon full of guys who want to go murder that village. They want to go kill every heartbeat in that village.
Yeah.
And what we had instead was the stoicism of my lieutenant come across, one of the best leaders I've ever known, and still somebody that I look to as a mentor when I can't make sense of things. And he came across, he said, you want to do it? You guys want to go kill them? Fuck them, right? Let's just go kill everybody. Put a bullet in every one of their heads tonight. That's what you want to do? And everybody, you don't want to do that. You think it. You might even say it, but you don't want to do that. You don't want your command to say, hey, let's go do that. And that's what we needed to hear. He said, we're not doing that. We are Marines. We do this clean. We dishonor Hansen by doing that. We honor him by going and doing this correct and bringing to justice the people that are responsible and nobody else.
Yeah.
And when he said that, it was business as fucking usual. Yes, sir, you're right. Let's go. Let's lace up. And on our leaders, it had a different impact. On the decision makers, it had a different impact. On his friends, it had a different impact. It was different for everybody involved, depending on which level you were at. And my contention since then's been at that E5, E6 level, that 012 level, maybe 3, depending on your mission as a captain. When you're making decisions on the field, you will feel them forever. When you're a Lance Corporal and people are making decisions for you on the field, I think it's a little bit easier. And I've had it both ways. I'm not throwing shade.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as a leader, you do own some of that. As a GP, you don't own any a decision. You didn't make those decisions, you carried them out. When you're a leader and you're pushing or motivating people to go do what they need to do, you will feel it. And you'll feel it different than the other troops do. When it's a high valued person, it does something like this. One of my best friends was a sergeant. He was the sergeant that I worked with. We tried to kill people together. One was the hammer, one was the anvil. It's what our captain called us. And he didn't die in combat. We went through it. We made a lot of other people die together in combat. Then we came home and he got diagnosed with cancer, a rare form of abdominal cancer like you hear about in the Hunter 7 Foundation people talking. He was in the wrong spot with bad stuff in the sand is what it sounds like in Iraq prior to Afghanistan. But he was, to me, Joey Harms, God rest his soul, to me, he was a mentor. He was a brother. He was a high valued person in that company that we all went to at the senior sergeant level, the senior squad leader level to say, hey, I need help with this. What would you do here? I need guidance. And when that person dies, it fucks you up because it's like, if he can die, if they can get him, it guts you. And you just have to feel through it. I'm not going to say there's a great way to feel through that. It's not a great way, especially when it's somebody renowned in the unit. Somebody renowned, somebody invincible, one of the guys that always gets it right. And you got to feel through that, man. It's heavy. It hurts. It makes it hard to swallow. But you take the greatest things from them and you talk about them forever. That's what you do. The PB Abates. Patrol Base Abate, named after Abate. It will live forever. People will sit around a fire and talk about that boy forever and who he was to those people. Joey Harms will live forever. You know, they say a man dies twice, once when he dies physically and the second time when the last person breathes his name. And we got such a esprit de corps and a tradition within the Marine Corps. And I'm sure the other branches do too, but within the Marine Corps is what I can speak to. And it is so powerful. Those giants, those people, those remembrance of those guys, even though they're not statues and they're not PT flags and memorials, but they're huge, and you got to talk about them, and you got to keep talking about them. And those guys can save a battalion through a Spirit de Corps. You can tell the battalion about those guys, and they beat their chests and say, I'm in Joey Harms's battalion. I'm in Ryan Cohen's battalion. Ryan Cohen does it right. His people talk about his battalion, his Victor unit. 3 years after he's gone, there's kids still talking. I'm in Ryan Cohen's unit.
Yeah, I know Ryan. Yeah,
he's a great. I mean, I don't know him, but I've watched him. I've watched his guys, and that's what those guys do, and that's what happens when you lose people like that. In my opinion, that's what happened to us.
Yeah, well, I love your heartfelt comments. They're spot on, and I want to throw some clinical comments out to the folks listening to this. When someone reading or watching or listening to this is going to combat, I don't know when, could be 50 years from now, whatever the internet's going to look like. But if you go against any kind of a credible threat, there will be casualties. There's two things you don't want to be a factor in those casualties. As a unit leader, your failure to adequately prepare your troops for facing a credible threat. Proficiency, training, MOS skills, mental toughness. And then, God forbid, if those casualties are in any way caused by your ineptitude as a leader.
Yep.
And I say this, I want to get your thoughts, Ryan. I said ineptitude. I didn't say mistakes. You're a lieutenant or a corporal or any combat leader without experience is going to be much better after the first firefight, the third firefight, the 15th firefight.
Yep.
And you can't blame someone for making an honest mistake. And sometimes as a combat leader, those honest mistakes will result in the death or maiming of some of your Marines. Mm-hmm. You know, you pushed them out too far, they didn't have enough fire support, whatever. You learn that lesson. That's going to happen, and that's tough for a leader to, you know, you got to dig in, learn. What I'm talking about ineptitude is the guy that doesn't insist on a good medevac plan prior to an operation, the guy that really hasn't leaned hard on his officers and NCOs and staff NCOs to make sure that the weapons are cleaned and there's batteries in all the radios and the right crypto fills. That's ineptitude. And I got to tell you, I can forgive someone's mistakes. I made them. Thank God. A couple mistakes I made. I still wake up sometimes thinking, my God, what was I thinking? Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. I mean, we could have all got killed on that. But at the time, it made sense because I didn't know any better.
Sure.
Sometimes I did know better, and I'm like, but we can take the risk now, you know? And I didn't have to pay a heavy price for it. That was just immaturity and judgment and all of that. But I can't forgive someone, a professional soldier, and I say that in the generic sense, Marines, professional soldier, profession of arms, mm-hmm. who doesn't treat his profession like a true professional should. Mm-hmm. To be the very best that he could be and all of that. So I love your comments on this, Ryan, and again, I appreciate it. One additional question to this, what about the effects? And again, in some environments, you're going to see them. Hopefully you'll see a shitload of enemy casualties, you know. But what effects of enemy casualties, you know, from a guy that realizes, you know, I'm 19 years old. I played high school football 18 months ago. That guy laying there, I just shot him. He's dead. I did that, you know, mm-hmm. or we did that, you know, they're all torn up. And what about the unfortunate civilian casualties,